The deal to pull the United States back from a debt cliff meets its first big roadblock today. At 3 p.m., the House Rules Committee convenes. It is TBD whether the unhappy conservatives on that panel will have enough votes to try to kill the Biden-McCarthy debt pact at its first legislative stop. Hardliners say the deal that gave Speaker McCarthy the gavel back in January included a promise that any legislation needed all 9 Republican Rules Committee votes to make it to the full House. McCarthy allies say they don't remember it that way. This Washington wrinkle puts the must-pass deal in some considerable early peril. The hardliners say the compromise doesn't cut enough spending. But listen to Speaker McCarthy this morning. He says he got the better of the president, and the Republicans should vote yes.
We're actually going to spend less money this year than we spent last year. Read the Wall Street Journal. They say it's a very good bill. This is the biggest cut in American history that we'd vote for. I'm not quite sure what else they want to go. I think we got to look at where the victories are. We don't spend another $4 trillion. We allow them to keep going forward until January.
Let's get straight up to Capitol Hill. CNN's Melanie Zanona is live for us there. Melanie, the Speaker says Republicans should vote for it, but he's got some trouble on his hands.
Yeah, that's right. There is a lot of outrage on the right here over this deal. They feel like he essentially gave up too much in these negotiations. And the House Freedom Caucus is actually holding a press conference right now to rally opposition against this bill. But John, the two big questions right now are, do they have the votes to be able to block this from even coming to the floor or passing on the floor? And is Kevin McCarthy's speakership safe? Now, on the first question, it does not appear that they do have the power to block this. The bill does have to go through the House Rules Committee later today before it can get a floor vote. And there are 3 hardline conservatives on that panel. That was part of the deal that Kevin McCarthy made to become Speaker. But 2 of them, Ralph Norman and Chip Roy, are signaling they will vote against the rule. But one of them, Thomas Massie, we are learning, is expected to support the rule, which means it will be able to advance and get onto the floor. But on that second question, John, whether Kevin McCarthy's speakership is safe, that is a lot less clear. The House Freedom Caucus did have a call last night where they talked about their strategy moving forward and how they're going to approach this. And while a lot of them are against the idea of using a tool known as the motion to vacate, which would essentially force a floor vote on ousting Kevin McCarthy, it only takes 1 member to be able to force that vote. And Congressman Chip Roy is especially angry. He told Glenn Beck in an interview on the radio moments ago that this deal is a betrayal of the power sharing agreement that we put in place among House Republicans. And he also said, if we can't kill this bill, then we're going to have to regroup and figure out the whole leadership arrangement again. So a clear threat there, John, and potentially his speakership at risk.
Mel, stand by, because Chip Roy, you just mentioned, speaking right now. Let's listen.
The things that we actually run on, actually trying to change this place, actually trying to secure the border, actually saying that if you're going to raise the debt ceiling, maybe you should actually enact fiscal reforms to do so. We did that. We worked in good faith. Everybody's sitting around, working around the table to accomplish the objectives the American people sent here to do. Unfortunately, last week, there was a breach. There was a breach in the structure that we agreed to put in place to make sure that we are representing the American people through this heretofore United Republican Conference. The Republican Conference right now has been torn asunder. And we are working hard to try to put it back together again this weekend by making sure that this bill gets stopped. I want to be very clear. Not one Republican should vote for this deal. Yes. Not one. If you're out there watching this, every one of my colleagues, be very clear. Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal. No one sent us here to borrow an additional $4 trillion to get absolutely nothing in return. But at best, if I'm being really generous, a spending freeze for a couple of years. That's it. That's about what you get. And frankly, you're going to make things worse. And my Democratic colleagues know it. That's why they're supporting it. That's why they're going around gleeful. Look, there's a reason our Democrat colleagues support this. There's a reason that Mitt Romney supports this. There's a reason that Bill Kristol supports this. It's all the same stuff. There's a reason that our conservative allies are opposing it roundly. The Club for Growth scoring against it. The Heritage Foundation scoring against it. Freedom Works scoring against it. Ron DeSantis publicly opposed. President Trump said he thought we should default rather than pursue this kind of lunacy. At the end of the day, the only person that would default in this town is Joe Biden, unless Republicans default on the American dream by voting for this bad bill. That is why this.
You're listening to Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. You see members of the Freedom Caucus, the House Freedom Caucus, surrounding him. Kevin McCarthy had to negotiate with them to become Speaker, and now Chip Roy right there threatening that if this debt deal, the Speaker cut with the Biden White House, if it is passed, he's threatening to revisit the Speaker's hold on the gavel. With me in studio to share the reporting and their insights, CNN's Dana Bash, CNN's Nia Malika Henderson, and Sungmin Kim of the Associated Press. So there you have it right there. Number one, McCarthy appears to have the votes at the moment to get it out of the Rules Committee. The question is, as he sits in the Speaker's office, what calculations are going through his mind? Does he also think he can survive a challenge to his leadership, or does he have to yet again accommodate the right and stop his own deal?
That would be really remarkable, because this is the most delicate of balancing acts that both leaders in both parties have to do. The president is doing the same thing. It's just that maybe they haven't been as vocal this morning as they have been in the past with the left flank. And what we're talking about here is a true compromise, in the sense that there are, if all goes as planned from the perspective of the White House and the House Speaker, there will be no votes on the left, and there will be no votes on the right. And they're going to need the majorities to be gotten basically in the middle by Democrats and Republicans. The Chip Roys of the world are furious. Obviously, you just heard him say that. I spoke to a senior Republican House member this morning who said that the feeling among the House leadership is that there are not enough people who want to, quote unquote, emasculate their leaders, both the president and the Speaker, in order to take this down. We'll see if that holds.
Right. So a traditional Washington deal, the left and the right are mad. You have enough votes in the middle, you pass it, everybody grumbles, and you move on. What makes this more interesting is just because Speaker McCarthy, House Republicans adopted the rule, one person, Chip Roy, sounds like it's going to be him. Yeah, he can change his mind, but he comes to the, let's say they pass this, and he comes to the floor at the end of the week, says, I want to vacate the chair. Is Kevin McCarthy, like John Boehner, like Paul Ryan, to feel, essentially going to lose his job, different circumstances, but because of flack on the right?
Listen, I mean, this was always the fear. I mean, we all covered the 15 rounds, and he finally made the speakership, and sort of the underlying story was, how tenuous his grasp on the speakership was. And with this happening, you see Chip Roy's very strong words. He said, the Republican conference has been torn asunder. Not one Republican should vote for this deal, he said. So he does look as he's at least setting himself up to be somebody who would try to get the speaker out of there. Can he bring others along? I mean, he certainly seemed to be having a call to arms there for other Republicans to vote no on this deal and say, there's a reason why Democrats are happy with this deal. And so we'll see. I mean, this was always going to be a perilous time for Kevin McCarthy, and we see it playing out.
To your point about call for arms, it was quite interesting. Governor DeSantis did say over the weekend if he were in the House, he would oppose this deal. He would vote against it. Donald Trump hasn't said anything. Hey, Chip Roy quoting what Donald Trump said in the CNN town hall before this deal was struck, that at some point they're going to default. I'm not president. I don't care. That was Trump's flippant. It was just a flippant attitude. I'm not president. I'm not going to get blamed. Go ahead and default. But Trump has said nothing. At this tenuous moment, Donald Trump has a lot of sway over House Republicans. If he were to say something, he could tip the scale either way, could he not?
He definitely could, which is why you hear Congressman Chip Roy bringing all of the outside opposition, whether it's conservative outside spending groups, whether it's what the former president said before this deal was finalized, whether it's Florida Governor Ron DeSantis trying to drum up opposition against this deal. And you do see how Speaker McCarthy at least has to go on a really aggressive public relations messaging offensive. You hear him saying over and over since this deal was announced that Democrats got no wins in this deal, which isn't quite accurate, but that is what he and his lieutenants have to say to try to convince. I mean, you were probably never going to get a Chip Roy on any sort of deal. I think we're kind of missing that point. But those people who are kind of teetering on the edge of a yes or no in the Republican conference, he really does have to work overdrive to convince them that this is the best deal that you can get with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. So